All right, I will now introduce our first speaker today. Elizabeth Williams, a fifth-year AP Science teacher from Sugarland and the faculty sponsor of the Austin High Secular Student Alliance Group, which gained national media attention in 2011 when the administration did seemingly everything within their power to prevent that group from being established. Elizabeth is a lifelong humanist who grew up in rural Texas, as well as a longtime member of Humanists of Houston. Please welcome our first speaker for today, Elizabeth Williams. Thank you, Julie.
Forgive me, I've got a mix of analog and tech, so I'm trying to get everything out of pockets first. So hi, everybody made it out, everybody made it dry. Just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Liz. As she mentioned, I'm going to give a little bit of background about myself so that you kind of understand my mentality when I came into this situation at Austin High School. I grew up in Wharton, very rural Texas, for any of you guys who have sadly driven through it. It's a town of 9,000 people with over 40 churches. So if you want to do the math on that and figure out our per capita, it's a very, very Catholic community. Specifically, there is quite a bit of Baptist, but it's predominantly Catholic due to its large Czech community and its large Hispanic community. So that being said, I grew up doing the Lord's Prayer at every football game and every theater performance, and I didn't realize that you could be out in high school. It wasn't something that I understood that one could do. And so when I went into teaching 5 years ago in Sugarland, I still wasn't out of the closet religiously, I guess you could say. And so that being said, spring of my first year teaching, so spring of 2010, I was approached by a parent of a student who asked, "Hi, I'm Mr. Lisco, I work a lot with the theater. I heard you're one of the new science teachers." And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Would you be interested in sponsoring a club that my son is trying to get up and running, a secular club or an atheist club?" And I was like, how did he know? I was very, very like, oh, I thought I was being good. How did he figure this out? You can't be out in rural Texas. It's sad that I still think of Sugarland as rural Texas, but there you go. And so I was like, okay, I'm at a position where I'm an adult and I can have this position in my life. I can be out, I can be strong, I can do this. And I said, yes. And so at that point in the year, it was too late to get a club approved. Clubs have to be approved before November 1st. And so for the next school year, Brian Lisco, this son of the parent that I just spoke about, worked with me a little bit, got a constitution for the club together, presented it to the faculty, and the faculty said no. It wasn't until later that I found out that absolutely no clubs got approved that year. It wasn't just us. The person in charge of approving clubs was like, "We already have too many, I don't want any more." I was like, okay. What we were told at the time was students can be secular in other clubs, like National Honor Society, or National English Honor Society, or National Spanish Honor Society. And even though there was a FCA on campus, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, there was an MSA on campus at the time, Muslim Students Association, we didn't get a secular one approved. I said, all right. Brian did not say all right. Brian kept up the fight, and he actually got in touch with Lynn Grossman at USA Today. And she wrote an article, and this is exactly what I wanted to pull up because I think it's the best title for an article ever. She wrote an article called "Atheists Head for High School with New Clubs for Godless Teens." And I was like, teenagers are already kind of heathens, you don't really need to put that. But as soon as this article came out and as soon as Lynn was contacting our principal and our superintendent at the time about, hey, I'd like some quotes and I'd like some sources on this, I got a call the next day during my second period class saying, "Hey Liz, are you associated with this group?" And I was like, well, if it was a group, I would be associated with it, but it's not, so I can't be. Making sure to do all that CYA stuff that you have to do when teaching high school. And she told me, well, we've reconsidered and you've approved the club. You need to get membership, a list of your membership together, a list of meeting times, and a constitution submitted by this afternoon. I said, all right. Seeing as I already had all that information, I went ahead and forwarded it and went, that's weird. I don't think a lot of clubs get approved in spring. I wonder what happened. and so the article came out, and for those of you who know of Hermit Mehta, he does the Friendly Atheist as part of the Patheos blog that P.Z. Myers works with as well. He also reposted the article and then pulled out a quote that I really wanted to express. Brian Lisko, 18, a senior, Stephen F. Austin High School in the Houston suburbs, found his efforts to form a club were delayed for 3 months by one hurdle after another. At one point, the principal said he could have the club if he just called it a philosophy club and it didn't affiliate with the Secular Students Alliance. Lisko, however, would not give up the alliance ties. He says, "We atheists are already invisible. We don't come out. That's a form of repression in and of itself. It's about getting pushed to the margin of our community." So after a request for comment from USA Today, the school abruptly granted Lisko the Secular Student Alliance Club on Tuesday. So that's what happened while we were in school. So the club gets approved, begrudgingly. We finish out the 2011 semester, and then when we come back to school in fall of 2012, we decided, hey, this is a fresh start. We don't want to have just the angry atheist club stigma. So we're going to get out there, we're going to do some volunteer work, we're going to make sure that all of the club members are super pleasant to all of their teachers and other students in the school, and really kind to try and make this bright, shining example. So that December, we decided to do a year-end gift. Not a Christmas gift, not a Hanukkah gift, a year-end gift to all of the teachers, which was a treat bag with a nice little note, and then also this brochure that the Secular Students Association puts out. The title of this brochure is Non-Theistic Students in Your School. It's for teachers. It's to say, hey, these are the kind of non-religious students that may be in your classroom. Tells you a little bit about the difference between an agnostic and an atheist and a humanist and a freethinker and a skeptic and a bright and a naturalist and a Pastafarian even, which I really love. There's a whole little section on Pastafarianism in here, and I was like, I did not know that. But what I really thought was the most informative part of the brochure and why we wanted to give it out to all of the faculty was the section in how you can help. Teachers, school officials, and administrators bear a legal and moral obligation to safeguard the well-being of non-theistic students. All students are entitled to be treated with respect in a public school environment, regardless of their beliefs. This is exactly what my students were running into with their teachers. Teachers were quoted as saying, as long as you have a belief, I don't care what it is, as long as you believe in something, then you're a good person. We had teachers in our fine arts department that would give prayers in class and proselytize. And so we really wanted to spread this word a little bit because our students were feeling a little bit shunned. And so that got put out. And in third period, one of the assistant principals called me in and said, hey, are your kids giving these out? And I said, yes, they are. They're handing them out to teachers with a treat and saying thank you for doing what you do because they appreciate their instructors. And she said, you can't do that. It's proselytizing. You're spreading atheism. You can't do that. The treat was conditional on the teachers taking the pamphlet as well, and that you couldn't do it like that. And I said, oh, okay, what do I do now? And she said, well, you need to go to all of those teachers and take back the pamphlets. Because if this kind of a thing got out into our very Christian neighborhood, if a parent saw this, it would cause a whole lot of problems. So for the rest of that day, I had to go around to my colleagues and say, I'm sorry that I gave you a piece of paper with words that may have been construed as offensive because you're religious, and take them back. For the most part, teachers were asking why, and I said, administration said that I need to take them back, I'm taking them back. A couple of the teachers said, oh, I already ripped that up and threw it away. To my face. Grown-ups said this. I was boggled. I said, okay, fine, and I left the classroom. So that was kind of a hurdle. that we made it through. Another one was that one of our fine arts teachers was tearing down posters that were in her hallway of SSA meetings because she's a devout Christian and thinks that that's the devil's work. And that kind of stuff still comes up in modern day society, unfortunately. But this year has been an excellent year thus far. We've got a new principal in charge of clubs who's incredibly supportive of us and what we're doing. There's also now a GSA on campus that we are doing a lot of work with, a Gay Straight Alliance, that has a fantastically large membership already. And since we're doing a lot of cross work with them, it's helping us get the word out as well in a more humanistic kind of way. And we've got some great enthusiastic officers, and I'm still to this day so proud and completely boggled by the fact that kids can be this open about being non-theistic in school. And so I'm incredibly proud of them, and I do whatever I can for them. So if you guys have any questions, I would love to answer them. Yes?
When you were going around to the teachers afterwards, like,
Yes.
I've got to take these back, were there some who said, no, I've, for whatever reason, found it appropriate enough, they insisted on keeping it?
There actually were a handful, I want to say like 3 to 5. I didn't keep very good notes on that because I was incredibly upset.
But
I
did
almost
you
rage quit. But they asked, yeah, seriously. They said, I've actually read through this somewhat and I would like to keep it. Is it okay if I keep it?
Right.
And I said, because you asked me that if you can keep it, then yes, you can keep it. But otherwise, I had to take them all back. Yes?
Where do I find a copy of this pamphlet?
I have copies!
Oh,
And since you asked for one, I can give it to you. Instead of being considered as proselytizing. But also, the Secular Students Alliance, the national, they do a lot of these kind of pamphlets, not just geared towards students. This one is specifically geared towards teachers. But they have ones geared towards parents and communities and all sorts of stuff. And they are more than happy to send you anything you ask for. They've been incredibly supportive, especially JT Ibrahim, who's sadly no longer part of SSA, but he was our real go-to guy at the time. But yes, I'm more than happy to give you pamphlets. Anybody else? Yes, Julie, in the back with the bad
What
kids.
sorts of activities have you been doing so far this year? Well, I guess it's kind of early this year.
This year we've been talking about actually expanding something that we did last year. We had a couple of Mormon students come in and talk to us about what Mormonism is, because Mormonism has the stigma that Mormonism has, and actually just have an open discussion. We're trying to get more discussion-based. We do every other week as a debate topic, a philosophical topic that we discuss, and we're trying to get more and more other religions in to have somebody come and answer questions. We also do volunteer work in the area. When the Imperial Sugar building was imploded, we did some pickup work with that. We also do some volunteer work with the Natural Science Museum branch that's out in Sugarland. They do a lot of summer programs that they are always in need of adults for. Adults. But yeah, responsible science-oriented kids. But yeah, so just random volunteer work. We haven't done anything very consistently. Yes.
How big is the school and how many members of the club?
The school is 2,400 students, which is 4 times the size of the high school I went to, and so even that just boggles my mind. There's about 20 active members at any point in time, and then there's another 30 that kind of shuffle through. They're on the Facebook group, and that's about as active as you can get some teenagers to be. Unlike Sarah, who's very active. Yes?
So you grew up Catholic and
Oh no, I luckily enough grew up without religion, but I was surrounded by Catholicism and baptism.
your parents also didn't?
No, my father was what he considered a devout atheist. He was raised Catholic and then went away from the church, and then my mother is spiritual but not religious, which I like to make fun of because she has a medical degree. But yeah, so I was lucky enough that I went to church occasionally with my friends, so I feel like I know what I'm against. I'm very much into you should research the things that you oppose. But no, I was luckily enough able to grow up in a sane household in that regard. In that regard, lots of other crazy going. Oh, yes, and then
Have you had theist students come in, and what was their reaction to
any what kind of students?
theist believers?
Oh yeah, no, we've luckily we haven't had any angry theists come in, but we have had theistic students come in and gladly join philosophical debates because we used to actually have, a couple of years ago, quite a few Muslim students that would come to meetings because they say, well, hey, it's not my religion that's being represented by those that want to put religion in the classroom. And so they were very secular in that regard as well. And so they would like to come to meetings and say, okay, for our discussion type topics, we would say, well, if you're going to create a new set of rules without religion, how are you going to base them morally? And that kind of bouncing those ideas off of each other. And so that we do occasionally have theistic students. And so far it's been very, very positive. We haven't had the FCA come like knocking on our door. Oh, actually, sorry, there was one in the back and then I'll get you.
This is somewhat related to the conversation about science textbooks and because you're a science
Definitely.
teacher. I'm curious, do you have conversations with your science colleagues about this? And are they very direct about, well, no, I don't, evolution's not my thing, I'm not really going to teach to it, I'm going to teach this, or the other way around?
It's actually the other way around. We're incredibly lucky in that our biology department, while there are several very religious people in there, are more of the allegorical Christians in that they read the Bible allegorically rather than literally. And so they are accepting of evolution in one hand, but are also long-term creationists on the other, but they in no way push that in the classroom. Evolution right now is actually part of Texas curricula. So for right now, depending on how all that voting went down in Austin this week. And so they do actually teach evolution in the classroom. There will be occasional parent pushback, but for the most part, it's never about like how the earth came to be. It's more about how animals of this part in the fossil record came to be this in the fossil record. And so the parent pushback that you will occasionally get is usually skimmed over very quickly of like, hey, your kid has to learn it or they're gonna fail this quiz. Make them put down the answer I told them to put down and then go on. Yes.
You mentioned Muslim students.
Yes.
How about Jewish students?
We don't have a very large Jewish community in Sugarland. I think I've taught maybe a handful of students. In Sugarland, it's a very, very large Indian population, so we do have quite a few Hindu students. A fairly large Buddhist population because we do have a lot of Asian students as well, Southeast Asian students. But for the most part, I would say it's about a large portion, I'd say about a third of the students are Muslim, about a third to half are Christian, and then that last fraction kind of splits otherwise. Sugarland's very diverse. Austin is a minority-majority school, meaning that whites do not maintain the majority at Austin High School, which is pretty much how Houston is. But we do represent over, I think, 40 to 50 different countries of origin for our student population.
Well, have Jewish students expressed any opinion?
Not really. The Jewish students that I have encountered are more cultural rather than religiously Jewish. They're not very devout. They're not Hasidic or anything like that. They just tend to be more, it's Yom Kippur, so I'm not going to be here Friday. But no, they tend to, it's a small enough population, and then they're also not really bothered by the things that Christians do for some reason. Yes?
You indicated it was fortunate that we were having evolution taught in the schools. The question is, are they also teaching creationism?
No, there is no creation taught. Officially, there's no creation taught in our classroom. I do not know if any other teachers are mentioning it, but no, there is no creationism taught in our classroom.
What science do you teach?
I teach AP Chemistry and Honors Physics. So luckily, I don't have to have those conversations very often. Occasionally in physics, it will come up when kids want to talk about the beginning of the universe kind of a thing and background radiation and that stuff. But I'm very open about no, this is science and this is how it happened. Because a 2,000-year-old book told you otherwise. That's not true.
Those non-angry theists are merely neophyte atheists.
And I like to think of myself as a non-angry atheist. And personally, I use the term atheist occasionally. I tend to say more humanist because I love the Neil deGrasse Tyson quote of, I don't golf, so I don't describe myself as a non-golfer. I describe myself by what I am rather than not what I'm not. Sounds a little redundant. Okay, I think they probably would like me to... No? We're good? Okay, I have pamphlets if anybody wants to ask me for them.
Another question, if anybody has one? If not, we can go ahead and
Cool.
proceed.
Otherwise, I wanted to say thank you to students like Sarah and Zach. You guys are awesome.